What exactly is research in English? This mini lecture will provide a few examples of research, but this is not at all a comprehensive list. There are so many scholarly approaches to literature that I couldn't possibly list them. But if the idea of performing research in an English class is new to you, here are some things to consider. Historical research is just what you would expect. You study the history of a text, who wrote it, how they wrote it, what sources they drew on, how the book was originally published, and how it was received or reviewed. Sources might include an author's correspondence or biographies written about the author. Also, materials like maps or early manuscripts or early editions. In other words, physical materials that tell us about the history of the book, its production, the places and themes depicted, and how it was printed. A manuscript might also show us how and where a writer edited their text, or what their relationship was like with their editor. From advertisements or contemporaneous reviews, you can also learn how the book was received. Was it celebrated or panned? Was this the author's breakout book or a career killer? Theoretical research is research into the history of ideas. Few, if any, writers are the first to write about their topic, and of course, when someone has an original thought or a new theory, there are always followers who try their own hand at it. Sometimes a theorist will coin a new term for their idea, and so theoretical research also deals with terminology. Literary theories can be identified by their ists and isms. For example, we can have feminist, modernist, Marxist, deconstructionist, or post-colonial readings of a text, and these borrow from theories of feminism, modernism, Marxism, deconstructionism, or post-colonialism. Interdisciplinary research draws on knowledge from another field, from linguistics, from the history and sociology of science, from economics or art and aesthetics. Interdisciplinary work takes many forms. For example, you might discuss the modern theory of language change in order to inform your reading of a poem written in dialect. Or if you were particularly interested in bodies or medical history, you might read the work of the 18th century physician George Cheyne. From his work, you could learn how people thought about disease and treatment in the period. You might read the work of 18th century economist Adam Smith to learn more about the prevailing economic theories of this period, or you might look at the paintings of John Constable in order to see how this painter represented the very same landscapes that Wordsworth wrote about. Regardless of your choice of topic, there will always be a history of essays already written about it. You will not be the first person to look at a text, so you always need to be accountable for the people who have argued before you. If you do no other form of research, do this one. Read the existing criticism on the topic. This means finding essays or books or dissertations that have already been written about your same topic and learning what they have already said. The next step is to actually find these articles. So here's a little demonstration using the Penn Library website. So here I am at Firefox. I'm going to look for Penn's library. You know this generally as www.library.upenn.edu. I'm going to click on this link. Here we are on the Penn Library homepage. I'm going to put in a search for MLA bibliography, and that's the search you want to run. And that will take you right over here. Of course, the only e-resource that comes up is the MLA International Bibliography. And it's a database that collects all of the scholarly articles and books published in English literature and language. Every academic field is going to have its own database. This is ours. So here we are. You may see instead a proxy screen where you have to authenticate. You put in your Penn key and your password. I'm sure you're all familiar with how to do that. I've decided I want to write on Wordsworth's poem, Anecdote for Fathers. Immediately 7 results. So this is 7 articles where Anecdote for Fathers is listed as one of the primary texts for consideration. How about this one? Public Virtues, Private Vices, Reading Between the Lines of Anecdote for Fathers. And this is an article that's by David Simpson. Look, this tells you what kind of article we're looking at. We're looking at book articles. Book article, book article. This one's a journal article. English Studies in Canada. Let's see if it's online. What I'm going to do is click here. I see the little pen text link. It's going to give me the full information about the source. Now I'm going to click on pen text to see if I can actually get this article fully online. No full text available. You might be able to find it here. Let's take the title. I'm going to take us back to the Penn Library and search in Franklin for journal title. All right, there it is. We do collect it. We collect it from 1975 onward in our library. Electronic resource. Do we have it online? Yes, but only from 2004. So this article back here that we're interested in is from, there it is, from 1984. It's a little bit old to consider anyway, but if you wanted to read it, you would be able to find it in our library by going to the library, looking in the periodicals under English Studies in Canada, and pulling the 1984 volume, and you'll find that it's in March. This will tell you the page numbers. So there you have it. How you choose your critical sources is very important. Now, you don't have the time to read everything that has already been written, so you have to choose smartly and pick the right sources. How do you do this? The shortcut is be a snob. Look for scholars who write books that are published on fancy presses, like Cambridge University Press, not crappy University Press. Google the critic and see if he or she is established and has been writing and teaching for a while. I realize there are probably plenty of excellent articles written and published by people at mediocre schools. And in an ideal world, we'd read all of them and pick the best ones. But the truth is that being a snob saves you time. So, once you have a list of articles that might be interesting, how can we decide which ones to read? Well, let's think about what it means to be snobby. This is mostly common sense, but you'll want to look for articles whose titles you can understand. Pick articles you can actually find. It won't do you any good to find the perfect article and then not be able to actually read it. Finally, pick newer articles over older ones. The new ones summarize what the old ones said anyway. Think of critical articles as the representative work of a bunch of academics at different universities who are all debating about this literature. They write at each other, back and forth, arguing their various points of view. This is an existing, ongoing conversation, and you're about to join it. So you have to know what they're saying, and you have to know what they're saying now, not 50 or 60 years ago. That's why it's so important to choose recent articles. It's no fun to have a conversation with someone who was refuted a long time ago. Finally, a word on reading dissertations. It's actually really easy to finish your dissertation, and they don't go through the same vetting process as articles and books. Dissertations often come up in topical searches, and I recommend you avoid them. Just go for the journal articles, book chapters, and whole books related to your interest area. Just to review, first, you're going to locate sources using the MLA International Bibliography. Second, you'll see if we have the article online via pen text. Third, if we don't have the article, check Franklin to see if we carry the journal or book. Fourth, go to the library and get the article or book. Fifth, if we don't have the book in the library, or if you're taking this course from outside the Philadelphia area, the reference desk can get you a copy, usually a digital copy, via interlibrary loan, document request, or books by mail. For info about these services provided by Penn's library, speak with a reference librarian. Now, when you've found your sources, you've devised your argument, and you're ready to sit down and write, here are a few tips for how to treat the sources. First, use them sparingly. Research should not stand in for your argument. Research provides you with new evidence, but not with new arguments. When you bring in a source, introduce it. Remember that your reader is not familiar with the source. While critics, biographers, and theorists can add a lot to your interpretation of a text, remember that your interpretation still comes first, which is why a close reading still forms the bulk of your evidence. Research is always supplementary. Close reading is the primary data in this academic discipline. A paper that is 10% close reading and 90% external evidence will wind up drifting so far away from the text that you lose the whole act of interpretation. Don't let this happen in your papers. Lastly, you'll want to make sure to cite your sources even when you're paraphrasing and not directly quoting. You don't want to be the accidental plagiarist.